It started like any other morning. The sun had just come up and I was out on my land, doing what I do every day, farming. My tractor was running, the birds were chirping, and everything felt peaceful. That is, until she showed up. You know, the type. HOA clipboard in hand, tight-lipped, ready to scold someone for existing too loudly. Around here, folks call her the HOA Karen. I always try to keep things calm and respectful, but this time, she went too far. She stormed onto my property, waving papers and ranting about excessive noise violations, said my tractor, was disturbing the neighborhood. Now, mind you, I don't run it at odd hours or rev it for fun. I use it because I need it. What she didn't seem to care about was what that tractor actually does. This isn't just a backyard hobby. I grow food here, fresh produce that goes straight to local stores, markets, and restaurants. Half the town eats what grows from this soil. But none of that mattered to her. She said she'd take care of it if I didn't stop. I thought it was an empty threat, like the usual HOA letters. I was wrong. A few days later, I came outside to a mess I'll never forget. My tractor, ripped apart. Windshield smashed, tires slashed, wires hanging like spaghetti. I stood there in shock, trying to wrap my head around it. Who does something like that? That's when the real story began. Because what she didn't know, what she never even bothered to ask, was that I'm not just the guy with the noisy tractor. I'm the one making sure this community doesn't go hungry. And when the town found out, what happened? Well, let's just say things didn't go the way she planned. But before we get to that part, let me show you how it all unfolded. Now, to really understand how we got here, you need to know a bit more about this place. I live just on the edge of a small, quiet town. It's not fancy, but it's close-knit. People wave when they drive by, stop to chat at the market, and most folks know each other by name. I've been working this land for almost 10 years, and over time, I built up a decent-sized operation. Tomatoes, lettuce, squash, berries, you name it. All organic, all local. Nothing flashy, just real food grown with care. When the homeowners association formed a few years back, I didn't think much of it. They mostly dealt with lawn heights and mailbox colors, stuff that didn't apply to me since I'm technically just outside their main jurisdiction. Or so I thought. That's where Karen comes in. She's not just a concerned neighbor. She's the HOA president, and from the first time we crossed paths, she had a problem with my farm. It started with noise complaints about the rooster, then the delivery trucks, then the smell of compost. Each time I tried to be reasonable, adjusting hours, rerouting deliveries, even fencing in the compost area, but it was never enough. She'd always find something new to complain about. She called my work a disruption, like I was ruining her picture-perfect neighborhood by simply existing. And yet, I still didn't expect her to take it this far. Day I found the tractor destroyed, it didn't feel real. I just stood there, staring at the broken pieces, heart pounding, trying to stay calm. I didn't want to believe she could actually do something like this. But when I talked to a few neighbors, that's when things got even stranger. One of them saw something that night. Another mentioned hearing voices, and someone else said they saw Karen near my gate after dark. That's when I knew this wasn't just a feud anymore. It was something bigger. I started asking around more, trying to piece together what actually happened the night my tractor got wrecked. Most folks were hesitant at first. No one wants to get caught in the middle of drama, especially with someone like Karen. She had a way of making people uncomfortable, even scared. I heard whispers of her threatening fines over flower beds, shutting down kids' lemonade stands, even reporting one neighbor's dog for excessive tail wagging. Sounds ridiculous, but around here, she held power in the HOA like a mini-I. Mayor one neighbor, Dave, finally opened up. He said he'd seen a dark SUV parked near my field that night, said it looked like Karen's. But he wasn't sure, and he didn't want to get involved unless I had proof. Another neighbor, Sarah, told me she'd overheard Karen ranting at the last HOA meeting about taking matters into her own hands if I didn't shut that farm down. That stuck with me. Meanwhile, I had no tractor and no way to harvest the week's crops. I was scrambling, trying to keep the business afloat. I rented an old machine from a guy 2 towns over, just to get by. But it was clear, this wasn't just about a machine. This was about control. She saw the farm as a threat to her perfect neighborhood image. She wanted it gone, plain and simple. And while I was dealing with all that, something else came up. A couple of the newer families in the neighborhood stopped by my stand at the edge of the property. They didn't know the full story but had heard rumors. One of them worked at a local paper. The other had a daughter who volunteered at the town pantry, which gets most of its produce from me. They both seemed concerned. Like maybe they'd heard something I hadn't. That's when I realized Karen might not have been acting alone. Things started spiraling faster than I could keep up. The more I looked into it, the more I realized this wasn't just a personal grudge. It was starting to feel like a setup. The HOA had suddenly scheduled a compliance review of my property. They claimed my farming equipment was violating community standards. Even though I wasn't technically part of the HOA, Karen somehow got the board to vote on pushing my land into a new noise zone that would make farming between certain hours illegal. It was nonsense, and everyone with common sense could see that. But it was all happening behind closed doors, and I was being left out of every meeting. I started documenting everything. Photos of the damage, copies of old letters from Karen, statements from neighbors. A few folks were starting to speak out, finally realizing this was bigger than some petty neighborhood complaint. Even the local food pantry director reached out, saying they'd already noticed delays in the supply because of the tractor damage. Still, Karen wasn't backing down. If anything, she was doubling down, smiling at me in passing like nothing ever happened. And then the late-night calls started. Hang-ups. No voice, just silence. My motion lights would go off near the gate some nights, but when I checked, no, one was there. I couldn't prove it was her. I couldn't prove anything yet. But it all felt connected. Then came the big move. One morning, I found a notice posted right at the edge of my land, an intent to fine for violating noise ordinances, with a deadline to appear before the HOA board. No return address, no official seal. Just a printed piece of paper taped to my fence. That's when I knew. It wasn't just about the farm anymore. Someone wanted me gone, and the real question hit me. How far were they willing to go? Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, something happened that flipped everything upside down. That same week, I got a call from the town zoning office. At first, I figured they were following up on the HOA drama, but the voice on the other end sounded nervous, like he wasn't supposed to be calling. He said there was a request filed to reclassify my land as non-agricultural use, which, if approved, would make it illegal for me to run any kind of farming operation here. I asked who filed the request. There was a long pause. Then he said the name, Karen. But here's the twist. The paperwork wasn't signed by her. It was signed by someone else. Someone I trusted. The name on the document was Mark Edwards. He's a real estate agent who's lived in town forever, and up until now, he's always been friendly. We've worked together on small things before. He even bought produce from me for years. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why would he do that? I decided to visit his office. I didn't accuse him outright, just asked if he'd heard anything about the rezoning. That's when his expression changed. He didn't say much, but the look in his eyes told me more than words ever could. He was in something he couldn't talk about. On my way out, I noticed something else. Blueprints on his desk. A development project. Condos. And right at the center of it all was my land. Suddenly it made sense. This wasn't just about noise. complaints, or tractor engines. This was about money. Karen's campaign to shut me down wasn't personal, it was business. And if the land was reclassified, they could sell it, build on it, and cash in big. That's when I realized I wasn't just fighting for my farm. I was up against something much bigger than a neighborhood feud. And the worst part? I still didn't know who else was involved. After that visit to Mark's office, I knew I didn't have much time. If that rezoning request went through, everything I'd built would be gone. My farm, my business, even the town's local food supply. It'd all be replaced with luxury condos and fake grass. I spent the next few days gathering every document I could, every message, every photo, every statement from neighbors who were finally willing to speak up. I reached out to the local food pantry director, who connected me with a reporter from the town paper. She had been following whispers about shady HOA deals but hadn't had enough proof, until now. The story hit the news fast. Local farmer targeted by HOA in secret land grab. It spread across town in a day. People were furious, not just because of what was happening to me, but because they felt lied to. This wasn't just about rules and regulations. It was about greed hiding behind HOA letterhead. The community started speaking out. People who'd never even met me came by the stand to show support. Some even offered to help on the farm until I could get back on track. But the real turning point came at the emergency town council meeting. Karen showed up, cool as ever, but she didn't expect what came next. The zoning officer, the same one who called me, stood up and confirmed the request had been filed under pressure. Then Mark, looking pale and cornered, admitted he'd been pushed into it. Karen tried to deny everything, but when the emails were read aloud, emails linking her to the developers, there was no more hiding. Just when I thought it was all over, the twist came. Turns out, Karen didn't even live in the neighborhood anymore. She had moved months ago, sold her house quietly to one of the same developers she was working with. She was never protecting the neighborhood. She was flipping it for profit. In the end, the town shut down the rezoning, the HOA board was restructured, and I got my land protected as a community agricultural zone. The farm stayed, but more importantly, people woke up to what almost happened. All because of a tractor, and a fight I never asked for. After everything settled down, things slowly returned to normal, but not the kind of normal we had before. It was better. The town came together in a way I'd never seen. Neighbors who once kept to themselves started stopping by the farm more often, asking questions, bringing their kids to see where food really comes from, even volunteering during harvest days. That sense of community Karen had tried to control ended up growing stronger without her. I got my tractor fixed, thanks to donations and support from locals who chipped in. The town officially designated my land as protected farmland, which means no future HOA or developer can touch it. And that rezoning attempt? Rejected, permanently. Mark left the real estate company shortly after and came by one afternoon just to apologize. He said he lost sight of what mattered. I didn't forget what happened, but I appreciated the honesty. The food pantry got more funding thanks to the attention the story brought, and now we're supplying even more families than before. The reporter who helped break the story won a local journalism award. And as for Karen, last I heard, she'd moved 2 counties over, hopefully somewhere with no farms. Looking back, it all started with a noise complaint, a simple engine hum from a working tractor. But underneath it was a much bigger story about greed, power, and what happens when someone underestimates a community that feeds itself. I didn't set out to fight anyone. I just wanted to grow good food. But sometimes standing your ground isn't just about what you do, it's about who you're doing it for. So yeah, one woman tried to shut down my farm, but in the end, she only helped prove why it needed to stay. And it's not going anywhere.